Greetings, Namo Buddhaya. I am K.T.S. Sarao, former professor and head of the Department of Buddhist Studies, Delhi University, and Pro-Chancellor, Subharti University. In this module number 35, I shall be talking to you about the decline of Buddhism as to how the Saṃgha-Laity relationship and decline of urbanization and the evolving material milieu. Did this kind of development in any way contribute towards the decline of Buddhism? The complicated issue of decline may be actually understood better by looking at the nature of the relationship between the Buddhist Saṃgha and its lay supporters. There was hardly any complementarity between the two and were hardly mindful of each other's need for long-term survival. The Buddha and the members of the Saṃgha always accepted material support without ever considering the sectarian affiliations or motives of their benefactors. They not only accepted invitations for meals from any well-wisher, but would often walk into any household to beg for food, even at the risk of being refused. Such an arrangement appears to have acted against Buddhism in terms of maintaining a distinct identity and hence long-term survival. It would be impossible to call the lay supporters as Buddhist laity in the technical sense of the term, because the support offered by them was merely provisional. A religion whose clerical order and lay supporters were not fully committed to each other could not be expected to live perpetually. Herman Jacobi has pointed out that in Buddhism, laymen were regarded as outsiders, friends and patrons of the Saṃgha, whereas in Jainism, there was a close camaraderie between the laity and monks, enabling Jainism, to quote him, to avoid fundamental changes within and to resist dangers from without, unquote. This difference in the relationship between the laity and the Saṃgha accounted for the disappearance of the one and the continuation of the other in India. Edward Conze has pointed out that relations with the laity were always precarious, and there at its base was the Achilles heel of the whole soaring edifice. It seems that this distinction in the nature of these two religions may have in the end made the crucial difference, whereby one managed to survive and the other failed to maintain an independent existence. The inherent weakness in the very nature of Buddhism, a hidden tragedy waiting to unfold, was laid bare by the urban crisis when its supporters largely vanished and the religion fell to pieces. Thus, it must be accepted that the lack of loyal devotees was a major drawback of Buddhism. As a matter of fact, Buddhism in India never made an attempt to create its own community of lay supporters who could exclusively be called followers of the Buddha and no one else. They were no more than mere unattached well-wishers. Thus, in the Indian context, the term Buddhist did not on the whole include lay people and actually signified only those who had given up the lives of householders and become monks and nuns. This congenital weakness of not having nurtured a loyal laity made Buddhism a potentially failed religion in India. In this sense, it may be said that the decline of Buddhism lay hidden in its very nature. Thus, it may be said that though, when pressed hard, the Buddha spoke his mind on various social issues, his priorities lay elsewhere. He was not interested in cultivating a community of lay followers for whom his monks and nuns would have to act as priests and preside over their various social ceremonies. The peculiar character of the Buddhist lay porters and the nature of their relationship with Buddhism appears to have acted against the latter's long-term survival in four ways. First, the lay porters were almost entirely urban. Buddhism did not have much sport in the countryside. When a crisis in urbanization set in, sport for Buddhism also started dwindling, and the number of lay porters and sympathizers became abysmally low. This resulted in the abandonment of a large number of monasteries, and the Saṃgha became concentrated in fewer and fewer monasteries. When the Arabs and Turkish invasions took place during the early medieval period, the enervated Saṃgha, particularly in eastern India, was left with nowhere to turn for sport. As compared to this, Jaina and Brahmanical Hindu priests were able to disperse into the countryside where they enjoyed sport. Later, when the tide ebbed, they were able to reorganize themselves. The number of Buddhist lay porters was very small, perhaps only a tiny proportion of the Indian population, being confined mainly to urban settlement. Urban population itself being just a small proportion of the total Indian population. Buddhism could never become a major religion in India. Thus, Buddhist sport was flawed as it lacked mass base and was confined only to elite urbanites, a crippling weakness which Buddhism inherited at birth and lived with it so long as it survived in India. Thirdly, the lay porters' allegiance was mostly towards individual monks and nuns rather than towards Buddhism as such. This meant that the affiliation with Buddhism came to an end when a particular monk or nun died or moved away. One often comes across references to personal followers of different monks and nuns. It is hard to find single-minded allegiance towards Buddhism, either running through a family for several generations or, for that matter, all the members of a family owing allegiance to Buddhism collectively.